Welcome back, folks. My name's Shane. I'm going to share with you my long-term review here of the Sony ZV-E1. Now, if you're a Sony fanboy, you've come to the wrong channel. I'm not. I think this is a really solid camera, but I'm going to sort of talk about this from my own experience with reference of other cameras that I have in my collection, because, you know, when this came out, there was a lot of people that were going from the FX3 or the A7S III and getting this, and at the time I didn't fully understand why they would do that. But after getting this in my hands, it's definitely a really powerful camera. Now, I opted for the white one for two main reasons. One, I thought it would help with overheating, which it did. And two, it was about $500 cheaper when I got it. So I was like, I'm done. I'm going to get a white camera. Now, in terms of its overall build quality, I actually really like how this feels in the hand. It looks super cheap and nasty. If you haven't picked this up, you'll go, man, it looks really cheap, or it looks really plasticky. Actually, has a really good feel. It feels more premium in the hand than even the Panasonic Lumix S9, which I own 3 of. I'm a big fan of that camera, but this particular camera really does feel good in the hand, and it exceeded my expectations in terms of build quality. Nothing's creaky like I found on other cameras like the A7C that I used to own, and I really like the layout. The grip is nice and comfortable in the hand. I'm glad they've got a grip built into the camera, and the physical size is nice and small. So if you're looking for a camera that you can take traveling with you, or just as a run and gun camera for general purpose photography and obviously for video, because that's where it really shines, it's a really great choice. The 3-position slider control on the top from photo to video and S&Q is great. I really like that. You can't accidentally knock it or anything like that. Now, the biggest problem I have with accidentally knocking things is this clear image zoom dial. I hate it. Every time I go to use this camera, I have to be very conscious of not accidentally knocking this little lever. It's way too easy to move. Now, I've got really big hands. I can palm a basketball, and while I like the grip, I hate the position of this clear image zoom. I'm not a big fan. I also don't love the position of the on-off switch here, but I can live with that. It's nice and convenient if you're shooting with one hand, but again, I would have liked a similar switch to, say, the one that's for the photo, video, and S&Q mode. Now, this camera gives you pretty much everything you need for content creation. It's essentially an FX3 sensor, as we all know by now, in a compact form factor like this, and it gives you a whole bunch of new features. But you get a single SD card slot on here, which works with all the recording modes on the camera. We get a mic input, a headphone output at the bottom with a micro HDMI port, which is fine considering, well, it's not fine, but it is what it is. And there's also USB-C charging port on the side here, which doubles as your webcam functionality. Speaking of the webcam functionality, I love how easy this is to be detected as a webcam. You just plug it into your computer and that's it. It's that simple. So they really nailed that. The only problem I have with this camera is that if you're using it as a webcam, it lasts about 45 minutes before it shuts down. And yeah, that's just one of those things. Now, you can rig it up to fans and do all that kind of stuff, but if you just want it to work for an hour or 2 hours or whatever, then you don't want to be using it with the USB-C mode. So yeah, just keep that in mind. It's one of the limitations of that particular feature. In regards to overheating, I know the ZV-E1 has been notoriously unreliable since launch, and I didn't buy this for long form recording whatsoever, but this white camera body absolutely helped extend its runtime. So a little while back, I reviewed the Lumix S1R Mark II, and that's one of the flagship photo video hybrid cameras, which has a fan in it. Now, I left this on a tripod in direct sunlight, and the Lumix camera overheated before this. I couldn't believe it, and that's got active cooling, and this doesn't. So there's something to be said about this white camera body. I think it does a really great job. What I really like about the Sony ZV-E1 over other cameras from the line is the auto framing option. That is fantastic. It's just a good way of having a static shot, and then the camera can kind of follow you around. I've used that on plenty of reviews of lenses and so forth that I've done, as well as having this as a behind the scenes camera. And it does an excellent job at kind of delivering some footage that's a bit more interesting, that you don't have to worry about in post-production doing all the same type of things. So if you just want something to plonk down and to get some footage of something else that's going on, I think this is a really great choice. Now let's talk about the thing that let me down the most with this. So I was almost assured, based on the reviews, that the IBIS in here was fantastic. The new dynamic active steady shot was going to be the best thing ever. It was as good as the Lumix E-stabilization. It absolutely isn't. Now, if you're using a wide angle lens on this and you're vlogging, it's fine, but try it with a 35mm lens. It's unusable. The stabilizer in the Sony cameras kills me, man. People will go, take a gimbal with you. It's not the point. It should just be better. And unfortunately, I don't see it getting much better in the short term. Maybe they can incorporate better gyroscopic stabilization into the cameras at some point. But yeah, the IBIS in this is atrocious. Every time I go back to one of my other cameras and then use this is by far the worst. So if you're looking for super steady handheld shots, you've really got to rig this out a little bit so you get a little bit more weight behind you, which allows you to get more stable footage, or bring a gimbal. Now, if you're using a gimbal, this camera is great. You know, you can put a G Master 24mm f1.4 on there, or any wide angle lens, Viltrox one, whatever, and you're going to get incredible results. The video quality out of this is fantastic, and that's the primary reason why I purchased it. The thing that makes this kind of special is we don't get much in the way of additional crop. So you can shoot all the way from 24, 25, 30, 50, 60, and then it will crop in at 100 or 120 frames per second slow-mo, which is cool. It only crops in 1.1 times, so that's really cool. You don't get a massive crop. The stabilization doesn't work in the S&Q mode. If you're going to be shooting at 120 frames per second, it basically disables active steady shot. It's a bit of a bummer. So you've got to kind of make these considerations first and foremost if this is the right choice for you. Now, if you're going to be plonking this on a tripod in a studio, for example, you're going to get amazing results. This is an absolute beast of a content creator camera, but it does have its limitations. And again, if you're going to be using this for long form live streaming or recording, you may encounter issues. And again, this camera with the white body has been so reliable for me personally, and I can't believe I'm saying that, because I kind of grilled the release of this saying, how can they release something that's as unreliable as this? And people were like blown away by it. I'm not really blown away by this camera. I think it's great for the right person, for folks who want a B cam, maybe to the FX3 or A7S III. This is a really cool choice. It's a great little travel camera, or anytime you don't have to do super long form recording. This is where I think this really shines personally. One of the things I've always loved about my FX3, FX30, and this in particular is the battery life. We get one of the Sony's NPF-Z 100 batteries, and the battery life on this is incredible. It outlasts all of my other cameras in the studio or wherever I'm traveling, right? The battery life on this is insane. So whether you're shooting videos or photos, the battery life just goes on and on. So I really like that. Now, in terms of its photography features, you know, a lot of people will go, oh, the megapixels aren't high enough. There's no mechanical shutter and all that kind of stuff. I've used this for thumbnails and it's done a really great job. So I've taken it out to the park. I've just shot some fun photos with it. All of my test reviews recently of lenses have been with this, and no one's looking at the photos going, oh, where's the mechanical shutter? So I can understand that that's going to be a deal breaker for some folks. And if you're a pro, yeah, sure, then you might want to avoid this camera for straight up photography. But, you know, the target audience for this is folks who are looking for video features first, and then you might want to take some photos or thumbnails for YouTube or whatever it is you want to do with it. And for that, it's still a really great camera. All right, now let's do a quick talk about the ZV-E1 over here versus the Lumix S9. I always get this question in the comments section, so I want to talk about which one I would buy and why. So if you're thinking about shooting video in standard frame rates, so 24, 25, or 30p, I would say go for the Lumix S9. You get higher resolutions, and I think a better overall image. The sensor in here is really cool. And while it probably doesn't give you the same low light performance as the Sony, you know, you can shoot open gate 6K out of this thing, and it works great with cine lenses. The IBIS is fantastic, and as a straight up video monster, I would go with the S9. Unless you want uncropped 4K 50 and 60p, or you require 4K at 120 frames per second. That's where the obvious win here goes to the Sony. But if you're going to be shooting in those modes, this will overheat a whole lot sooner than it will in the standard frame rates in 4K. So just keep that in mind. I've had this pop up the overheating warning message shooting slow motion in the studio for just a few minutes at a time. So yeah, it really depends on how you use this, but in the standard frame rates, it's fine. But the standard frame rate win definitely goes to the Lumix. And if you don't have to post stabilize your stuff or bring a gimbal, again, the Lumix gets the win here. I would just prefer this. As a straight up travel camera, because of the IBIS, I'm taking the Lumix as opposed to the ZV-E1. When it comes to the autofocus performance, we all know how great Sony cameras are. Now, when it comes to human detection, it does a really great job. But the star of the show here are two things. One, when it comes to the tap to focus or touch to track. So you can tap on something in the frame, it will then follow it around. It does it really well. I used this feature to no end on the prior cameras when I was shooting with the FX3 and A7S III. So that's really handy. I also really love the dedicated product showcase mode. So usually you'd have to sort of cover your face up to show that object with a lot of the autofocus systems. But once you hit the product showcase mode, you can just hold something in front of your face here and it will track to that. So that's really cool. There's just a few improvements over the older generation of cameras just in terms of its overall tracking, but it does a really great job. Sometimes I do find I have to be pretty finicky about which speed and sensitivity options I need to use with certain lenses. But aside from that, it does a great job. When it comes to audio, this has pretty much everything you need to get going. We get a hot shoe mount here, so you can use an XLR adapter. We get the 3.5mm audio input here at the top. I think the preamps in here sound fantastic, so I'd have no problems using it, and I've had no problems using it. I really like how far the preamps in the Sony cameras have come. So you're going to get great audio quality with this. The only thing I don't really ever use is the onboard microphone. I don't really use them on any of my cameras unless they're just filming a band, where I find then those kind of room mic sounds kind of work okay. But yeah, if you're vlogging, just get a wireless pack or whatever you want to get better quality audio, because yeah, while this has all the new features of being able to pick up sound from all over the place, I never use it. All right, let's wrap this up. I'm going to talk about my long-term review of this camera. You know, unlike a lot of people that review all the Sony stuff, I speak my mind. So this is good. It's a great camera in some ways for the right type of person, and it's not the right camera for a lot of other people. And that's the message that often goes overlooked when it comes to YouTube. A lot of people will say, this is the best thing ever, and I'm switching over from this camera. You see all the same reviews go up, and you see it in every brand's niche, whether that's Lumix, you know, Nikon, Sony, or whatever, right? The new one, I'm selling all my stuff, I'm going over to this. There are a lot of videos about people selling their FX3 and A7S III to get this particular camera. And it may make sense for some people to do that, but as a primary camera, I wouldn't recommend it. This isn't something that will last long term on a tripod without overheating, especially outside, depending on where you live, of course, all that kind of stuff. You know, the webcam functionality is compromised, but the overall image quality speaks for itself. And if you're a video shooter and you're going to be doing a lot of short, sort of sharp bursts of video here and there, even up to 120 frames per second, it's a great choice. I just don't love the stabilizer, and I don't want to bring a gimbal, because I can use any of my other cameras and get stabilization that's insanely good, and I can do follow shots. I can do all that kind of stuff that really makes it hard with this camera once you start using anything other than a super wide angle field of view. Now, with all that said, there's some really great features in this camera that aren't in some of the prior cameras like the FX30 and the FX3. So I like the fact there's, you know, some fun modes that are baked into this, that, you know, cinematic mode, for example, the product showcase mode, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's a great camera for the right person, but just don't expect too much out of it. And don't expect it to be a great primary camera. You know, I've got my heater on in here. It's winter. I'm using the Lumix S5 Mark II X, and I can let this run for 5 hours, come back. It's hooked up to HDMI, this microphone, and it's powered right now, and it's just going to stay on, which can't be said for something like this. So yeah, it's a good camera. I'm not blown away by it, but when you get a great lens and you attach it to this and you're shooting maybe 50, 60p or 120 frames per second, it's pretty awesome. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. Leave a thumbs up if you can, and I'll catch you soon. See ya.